I'm making this video about an ergonomic guitar build inspired by the Strandberg guitar design. Here's some laser cut templates I did with the Nova guitar bridge there, made by Nova Guitar Parts in Brazil. I'll leave their website down below. That's the template drawn onto the bit of silver Guangdong timber. There's the template drawn on the timber again, with some really basic lines I've drawn in there to cut the shape out in a couple of different passes with a handsaw. Next time I do this, I plan on using a CNC machine from a local company, or maybe if I'm really desperate, I might use a jigsaw, but I really don't want to mess up the cut with a cut that isn't perfectly perpendicular if I'm going to be cutting anywhere near that body outline. I got the timber from Australian Guitar Timbers, and the guy sold me a paint body bit with borer holes in it for cheap. My plan is to cut out the basic shape from the blank first, and then cut the contours a little more in detail, and then use this rasp to get a bit more of a curve, and then use the plunge router to get the exact shape using a template. Yeah, so I'm using this Japanese pull saw, which wasn't the best decision, but it got the job done quite quickly, considering it was a hand saw. Now I've got problems with carpal tunnel and tendonitis, so I was pretty much exclusively using grip strength of my pinky and ring finger for this. My index, middle and thumb weren't really holding much, just because it was a bit painful if I did. It slowed me down a little bit, but at least it stopped any kind of pain. Yeah, you can probably see it there, my hand holding the saw like that. There it is there. Cut the outline out reasonably close. A couple of extra bits still to do. There's the template lining up nicely. Then I used double-sided tape to stick it to the table, ready for routing. I used a Makita plunge router to get the edge smooth, which was terrifying. I made a few mistakes up on the neck pocket, you'll see in a second, but it worked quite well, and it was really fast in comparison to using a rasp by hand. Yeah, there's a little nick there. And considering the timber being really cheap, the grain looks really nice. So because of the length of the router bits that I was using, I had to do quite a few passes. So that's me just using that flush routed section on the bottom of the timber to guide the bearing. But because of the thickness of the router bit's shaft, I couldn't actually route flush with that bit of timber that's already flush down the bottom. So I had to do another pass along the top here. So I'd route along that section that I'd just routed, which wasn't flush, and then I'd go down again and use the bearing to route along the section that is, or to guide along the section that was already routed, if that makes any sense at all. And then I'm cutting out the neck blank by hand because I didn't really have anything else to cut it with at the time. Next time I'm planning on I don't know if I already said this, I'm going to try and find a local CNC company to see if they can cut the parts out for me. I plan on doing some postgraduate research on guitar ergonomics. So this won't be the last guitar build I do, or at least guitar design that I make. The guitar neck is going to be short scale, 24-inch scale length. Same with the body, obviously. Just another thing that I want to look into with my research about guitar ergonomics. I've found that playing short scale guitars tends to help because it didn't force me to stretch as much. Yeah, there's the body. A little more detail with the beveling I was doing with the rasp. There's me routing along the edge of the neck, just getting it flush. There's me almost ruining the neck because I had no idea what I was doing with the router and still know very little about what I'm doing with the router. But luckily the neck turned out quite good. Also, the neck's going to be quite thick, at least an inch thick. Just another thing I want to look into with regards to guitar ergonomics and carpal tunnel. Yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail. I'll do a full video on that. But this video is basically just documenting my process of building the guitar. And then I'll be making more videos about my research into guitar ergonomics and more guitar builds that I do for the purpose of contributing to that research. Just me showing the neck fitting into the neck pocket of the template, which I was relieved to see. That's just a jig I had to make to route the truss rod and get it to be straight. Then I found out I needed to route out a little wider at the heel end of the neck just to accommodate the thickness of the nut of that truss rod. Just measuring it out here again. All up, I think all the routing I did took probably about a week, but it wasn't constant. It was, I'd do a bit Monday, not do anything on a Tuesday, and then Wednesday I'd do a couple hours, and I wasn't doing it all day. I'd have to take breaks and give my hand a rest every now and then. One of them would get a bit tingly, which again, I'm hoping to try and find a local CNC company to do some of the work for me, try and minimize the manual labor. I'm not building this guitar for the purpose of building the guitar. I'm building it because I want to figure out ways of designing guitars that are more ergonomic. Because I do think there's a long way to go with guitar ergonomics. Because if someone as dumb as me can figure out ways of making a guitar more ergonomic for myself, then I feel like there's much more intelligent people out there that could figure out ways of making a guitar more ergonomic just for the average person who doesn't have issues with carpal tunnel or tendonitis, if that makes any sense. There's me showing the truss rod fitting. Possibly a little bit too loose because I could slide it in and out, but it's in there now. Carbon fiber reinforcement slots. Had to take quite a few passes because of how thin the router bit was for this. Sorry for all the shots of me not wearing a shirt, but it was really hot in the garage and I was drenched in sweat within 30 minutes or so. Yeah, again, I was just using that bit of MDF to guide the router in a straight line. perpendicular with the center line of the neck rather than the taper of the outline of the neck. I spent probably more time vacuuming in this guitar build than I did actually routing, because I didn't have any dust extraction. I was wearing a mask pretty much the whole time, which added to the sweat. Yeah, and the reinforcement rods fit really snug, which I was happy about. Also, cutting reinforcement rods. Make sure you wear a mask when you do this because the dust is not good. It's really fine. And yeah, I just didn't like the idea of breathing any of that in. They're a little bit too long for the neck because the neck was short scale, so I had to cut a bit off. Yeah, and if there's anything in this video that any of you are curious as to where to buy it, let me know and I'll send the link in the comment. It took ages to cut through these things. Ugh. Excuse me. The pull saw actually works really well for cutting those reinforcement rods because of how close together the teeth are and how fine the blade is. This is me just routing out the electronics cavity and the pickup cavity and the neck pocket in a couple of poorly organized videos. Cutting the excess off the fretboard. Yeah, there's the bridge sitting on top of the body there. I did some boring of the cavities as well with the boring bit. And then, yeah, there's the electronics cavity. I had a couple of burns on the body from it, but I wasn't too fussed. I'm not building this guitar to look pretty. I'm building it to try and make something ergonomic. I think the Strandberg design is really great, but there's a couple of design choices I think could be improved for the purposes of ergonomics. Yeah, the neck pocket was a little rough, but got there in the end. For some reason I had little bits of excess that I had to chisel out by hand. And the corners of the neck pocket, I had done the design with those corners being too small, the radius of those corners. So I had to actually freehand route the corners with a much smaller, thinner router bit. This is me just taking some of the excess off the edges of the fretboard. I could have routed this, but the dust from the rosewood was really fine and stung my nostrils a bit, so I decided to just, I don't know, do it by hand. It didn't take long at all. The plane that I had was really great. That was me taking the glue off the glue joint between the fretboard and the neck because I did a horrible job of that. But it's something to improve on next time. Yeah, I think I need to work on removing that excess glue either during the gluing process or figure out a better way of doing it once it's dried, because depending on who you ask, they will tell you something different about how you should remove the glue in that joint. Yeah, so the neck pocket wasn't deep enough for the neck because the neck is really thick. So I had to route that out a little deeper. And then I got the string height wrong and I had to route out some more material under the bridge. It was a bit of a mess getting the string height sorted. I actually routed out too much material under the bridge. So I had to cut out a laser cut a plate to sit under the bridge. It was a complete mess, but something to improve on for next time. Yeah, there's the countersunk neck bolt holes, and yeah, I freehand chiseled out that section under the bridge there. And this video here, I don't know if you'll see it or not, but the strings are actually touching the fretboard. And the bridge has really low movement. It has very minimal movement, vertical movement in the saddles for string height. So it made it really difficult to get the string height and the neck pocket depth correct. Yeah, so on screen I'll probably show now a little plate that I made to go under the bridge, just to get the bridge a little bit higher and to get the string height high enough to be able to clear the frets, which is, always good. So in this video, I just wanted to document the process of building this guitar, trying to design a guitar that's ergonomic, improving on the Strandberg guitar design. I'll document more of the improvements later, but in short, it's shorter scale length, much thicker neck, slightly altered body shape. Yeah, I'll go into all the details in a future video, but in the next video, I'll probably do the fret installation. I'll be installing some stainless steel frets and doing all the fret work. The electronics I still have to do, painting the body or sealing it somehow, shaping the neck, installing the locking nut or the headstock, whatever you call it. And yeah, I think that's probably most of what I'll do in the next video. And I'll be uploading more videos about my research on ergonomic guitar design as well, if you're curious. I'm hoping to do a master's by thesis and a PhD on human anatomy and ergonomic instrument design for the purposes of preventing and alleviating symptoms of musculoskeletal disorders. So if you're interested, feel free to shoot me a message and I can chat to you about more of that. If you're interested in collaborating on some research or contributing to the research, I'd love to get any help that I can. Yeah, so thanks for watching the video and listening to me ramble.